Hey everyone, it's Jesse from Average Ontario Anglers, and today I'm going to give you some tips on how to catch steelhead in really low gin clear water. So it's only a few days after opener and the creeks are really low. There hasn't been a lot of rain and they're beyond gin clear. You can pretty much see every fish that's in here. They can see you too, which makes them very spooked. So I'm going to give you a few tips on how to catch fish in this low clear water. Now first let's start off with something that I think is not, a lot of people don't really think about, is wearing very natural colors. As you can see, I'm not saying you're going to have to wear camouflage, but don't wear any bright colors like red or orange or bright pink or anything like that. Not that you'd wear pink, but you don't want to wear any bright colors. As you can see, my waders are kind of a tan color and I've got like a very natural green shirt on and I got a nice camouflaged hat. If you can see the fish can see you, and at certain angles they really can see you, so don't wear any bright colors. You don't want to spook them before you even start fishing. So my first tip would be put a lot of steps in. You're going to have to find those pods of fish when they actually school up together. You may see one or two here and there, but usually if you put in the steps and walk, you can find a good grouping of fish, usually in the deeper holes. So in my opinion, when you find these fish and you sit on them and actually just keep fishing for them, you usually can pull one out. So I'm going to give you a few tips on what baits you should actually use, which are the more effective for using in clear water. So I just want to start off by saying the combo that I'm using an 11-foot float rod here. This is a light action 11-foot 3 with a center pin reel. You can use a spinning rod and reel too, but the main thing that I'm going to focus on, because fish can't see this, but what they can see is this. So I'm using a really small float. Now this is going to depend on where you're fishing, of course, but on these small tributaries, I really like this 2.2 gram Raven. It's just a tiny little acorn style float. And the reason I'm going to use that is because I'm not using a lot of weight, so I don't have to have a bigger float. As you can see, right now I have rigged up just a little nymph fly. And this is about 24 plus inches of 3-pound fluorocarbon, a little swivel, and one split shot. Literally one split shot that's what's holding it down. So you're fishing in slower pools, you don't need a lot of weight, and also split shots on your line are very unnatural too to the fish. They're super spooked. You want to have the least amount of things on your line as possible. You want your bait and maybe one split shot. That's about it. So speaking about line, like I said, I'm using 3-pound fluorocarbon. Drennan 3-pound. It's probably a little thicker than that. It's probably closer to 4. And if the water is very clear and the fish are spooked, I'll actually go to a frog hair. This is gamma frog hair. This is a 3-pound. This is a legitimate 3-pound. It's super limp. You may think, and I've heard a lot of people say this, that 6-pound fluorocarbon is just as invisible as 3-pound fluorocarbon. Yes, that's true, but 6-pound fluorocarbon acts differently underwater than 3-pound fluorocarbon. 3-pound fluorocarbon is super limp, 6-pound is not. Whatever brand you use, common sense will tell you that a thinner line is going to be more natural in the water and let your bait be more natural than a heavier fluorocarbon. I've tested it myself. I've used 6-pound, 4-pound, 3-pound, and in this clear water, I catch way more fish on 3-pound fluorocarbon. Again, it's going to depend where you're fishing, what line. Downsizing might be 6, it might be 8, depending on where you're fishing. So, what baits are you going to throw? So, as I mentioned first, I have this fly on here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm a firm believer in showing the fish something different. I have always a full fly box. I actually tie my own flies. I'll show you a close-up of this after, but some of these bigger buggers and stuff on this side I'm not going to use in clear water, but on this side, as you can see, I have a whole bunch of little nymphs and egg flies. And now I tie these myself. Even if you're using an egg fly, if the fish aren't hitting beads or roe bags and you tie on an egg fly, it looks different underwater. It's different, so the fish will oftentimes hit it. But my number one fly, as I showed you on this rod here, I just actually caught a fish on it too. It's a little pheasant tail nymph. Now I tie these myself. If you don't tie flies, I'd recommend checking out Kitefish Quality Flies or Ontario Steelhead Outfitter, Ontario Steelhead Flies. They tie some phenomenal flies for steelhead. There's tons of different flies you can use. The one that I'm going to focus on is just this little pheasant tail. I tie these. These cost about 20 cents to tie for me, maybe 30 cents. They're just a small brown fly. I'd say it's probably a size 10 or 12. It's very small. It literally catches fish. It's something I think that comes down to their childhood when the fish are in the creeks, and that was their main source of food, is nymphs. When they're bigger, they're not going to forget that. They're going to still munch on those too. Again, 3-pound tippet and a little fly. You'd be surprised the size of fish you catch on tiny flies. So the second thing that I'm going to tie on is a maggot. I'm talking about a plastic maggot. These are from kitefish. I know River Reaper also has some maggots too. Bunch of different colors. You can't go wrong with the natural white color. I've also caught them on the pink ones and actually the glow-in-the-dark ones too. A maggot is something that is so natural in the water. There aren't as many dead fish in the creeks as during the salmon run, but there are dead fish in the creeks. So maggots are something that the fish are going to be used to seeing. And again, it's something that when they were young, they were eating maggots in the fall when the salmon were all rotting when they were young. So maggots catch fish, and I'm going to use the same rig. I'm going to use a small float, literally maybe 1 or 2 small split shots just to get that down. And you can tumble along the bottom or just off the bottom. And I caught a fish. I'll put in some B-roll. I caught a nice buck today on a maggot. So that's another thing. And I know a lot of guys have been using maggots for years, but I don't see a ton of guys using them. And when I say guys, I mean anglers. The third thing is going to be a bead. Now, a lot of people fish beads, and you're going to say, that's not a trick. It's not really a trick. It's just using a small 6mm bead is the way to go in low water. I see too many guys, and the water is gin clear, and they're using like an 8mm bead. I'm like, that's literally larger than a salmon egg. You're trying to have a presentation that is the most natural as possible. If you look at a trout egg, it's actually much smaller than 6mm. They're probably closer to 4mm, but very few people have beads that small. So a 6mm bead, as you can see, this is a Creek Candy bead kit. If you're new to steelhead fishing and you don't know what bead colors to get, I'd recommend just getting a kit. Randy at Creek Candy put this together, and it's a whole bunch of natural colors. As you can see, you've got some peaches, some dead egg bite colors, which are really good. If you want to look at a video about the dead egg bite and how effective it is, it's going to be up there. Click the link. Just translucent colors, but the key is to use something small. 6mm bead is the way to go. Now, glass beads, I like using glass beads for one reason, is they have some heft to them, which kind of, you could say, makes it slightly unnatural. Acrylic is more neutrally buoyant, just like a real egg. Glass sinks down fast, but the advantage of using a glass bead is I don't have to use any other weight on my line. If it's a slower moving pool, I'll literally just have my float, one split shot way up near the float, and then just the glass bead. It has enough weight to pull it down into the strike zone, so you don't have to worry about that. So those are just some quick tips. If you haven't subscribed to this channel, if you could do that, that would be great. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, and we thank you for all your support so far. So if you have any questions about this particular technique, please shoot us a message in the comments or send me a direct message on Instagram. Tight lines, guys.